Having looked at the ritual of the coronation in the last video, in this video I'm going to look at the crowns and regalia of the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. I imagine a lot of you have now watched my videos on St Edward's crown and on the Imperial State Crown, in which I talk about why the British sovereign has two crowns with different functions. In the Middle Ages, as with the King, the Queen also had two crowns with different functions. One was used for the crowning only at the coronation and was kept with the medieval St Edward's crown in Westminster Abbey. Its origins are not clear, but it was known as Queen Edith's crown after Edward the Confessor's wife. St Edward's crown was a mortuary crown used at the burial of Edward the Confessor, and St Edith's crown probably had a similar origin, being taken out of the grave of a queen. It was seemingly rather an underwhelming object. In the 1649 inventory of the English medieval royal regalia made before its destruction, the crown of St Edith was found to be made of silver gilt and was set with only one or two garnets, a couple of sapphires and a few pearls. It was worth only £16 by Parliament's reckoning, contrasting with the £48 value of St Edward's crown. So that was the medieval coronation crown of the Queen, but there was a quite distinct great crown or state crown for the Queen's use too, and it is also described in the 1649 inventory, where it was said to be made of massy gold and weighed £3 and 10 ounces. It was studded with 20 sapphires, 22 balas rubies and 83 pearls, and was valued at £338, 3 shillings and 4pence. You can see this crown in this painting of Queen Henrietta Maria, the consort of Charles I, by Van Dyck, a painting painted 15 years before the crown was destroyed. It was less than half the weight of the King's state crown and less than half the value, and it was clearly much smaller, perhaps designed just to sit on top of the head rather than to encompass the head. Like the Tudor state crown used by Charles I, her husband, this must have been a wonderful thing to behold. Stylistically, it strikes me to be later than the King's crown, and I wonder if it was made for Queen Elizabeth I, who may well have struggled to wear the Tudor state crown of her father and grandfather. There is a painting dating from right at the end of Elizabeth's reign that shows her dressed in her coronation robes and crowned. It's now in the National Portrait Gallery. This crown bears some superficial similarities to the crown shown in the painting of Henrietta Maria, and I wonder if they are one and the same. There is a surviving medieval crown that may well be one of the medieval English consort's state crowns. Known as the crown of Princess Blanche of Lancaster, or the Palatine or Bohemian crown, it was among the items given by King Henry IV in 1401 to his daughter Blanche when she married Louis III, the Elector Palatine. It is now kept in Munich. Dating from the 1370s or early 1380s, this crown is recorded in an inventory of 1399 among the goods confiscated from the deposed King Richard II. It was probably made for his wife, Queen Anne of Bohemia. It is a sublime example of late medieval craftsmanship. 12 enamelled hexagonal fleurons are topped with tall lily stems. The goldwork is set with diamonds, balas rubies, sapphires and pearls, with a smattering of emeralds. It is not dissimilar to the crown we see on the head of Blanche's parents on their tomb in Canterbury Cathedral. Now, if I were to choose a crown for the Queen Consort to be crowned with in May, it would be this, but sadly it's not available. However, as we will see, there are quite a number of other consorts' crowns, 5 are still extant, that Queen Camilla could choose to use. When Charles II was returned to the throne in 1660 after the interregnum, he was unmarried. He married Catherine of Braganza in 1662, a year after his coronation. Now, she could have been given a standalone coronation, but as she was a Catholic, that was decided against. So no new consort's regalia was made until the coronation of Charles's brother James II and his wife Mary of Modena in April of 1685. In the run-up to their coronation in 1685, 2 crowns and a diadem were made for the use of Queen Mary to replicate the set of crowns that had been in use before the Civil War. A diadem, a coronation crown and a state crown were all commissioned from a goldsmith called Richard Beaver. The golden diadem was the replacement for the gold circlet studded with pearls that was traditionally worn by the Queen Consort in the procession from the Palace of Westminster at the beginning of the coronation. A coronation crown was made to replace St Edith's crown, and this is portrayed in Francis Sandford's wonderful and lavishly illustrated account of James's coronation published in 1687. There is a crown in the collection of the Museum of London made of gilt copper alloy and now set with paste stones and imitation pearls that is allegedly Mary of Modena's coronation crown, but it looks nothing like the illustration in Sandford, and in other respects his illustrations are accurate. And originally set with a mass of very large diamonds, it strikes me to have a very 18th century feel to it and not at all a 17th century flavour. If this is Mary of Modena's coronation crown, which I somewhat doubt, it has been drastically altered. There is also a state crown to replace the earlier Queen's state crown. The state or rich crown, as it is referred to in Sandford's account, is still in the jewel house, and it seems to have been more or less modelled on the crown shown in the painting of Henrietta Maria. It is now set with quartz, but like the other crowns in the Regalia up to the 20th century, it was set with hired diamonds and other jewels when it was used. As well as being in use for Mary of Modena's coronation, these crowns were also used at the coronation of Queen Consort Caroline in 1727, and were also used at the coronation of 2 queens regnant, Mary II, who was joint monarch with her husband William III at their coronation in 1689, and Queen Anne at her coronation in 1702. After Queen Caroline's coronation, the crowns appear then to have fallen out of use. In 1685, 2 other items of regalia were created for Mary of Modena's use, 2 scepters, and these have been used for the coronation of every consort since. They were both supplied by poor old bankrupt Robert Viner, the royal goldsmith and moneyman, who had also supplied St Edward's crown and the King's State crown 25 years earlier. As with the other regalia he was commissioned to create, he outsourced the work to a variety of craftsmen in London. The scepters are smaller, lighter reproductions of the sovereign's sceptre and the sovereign's rod with the dove, and it's not certain if they replicate consort's regalia used before the Civil War. Unlike the sovereign's rod with the dove, which is of gold, the consort's rod with the dove is made of ivory with gold settings. The top is surmounted by an enamelled mond on which is perched an enamelled dove. It has a delightful lack of sophistication about it. The sceptre with the cross is less lavish than the sovereign's, and rather than being set with precious stones, is instead set with quartz, and it seems always to have been set with quartz. The cross is supported on brackets formed from fleur-de-lis. After Queen Caroline's coronation in 1727, Mary of Modena's crowns, as I said, fell out of use, and so did the tradition of the Queen Consort having 2 separate crowns. Queen Charlotte, the wife of George III, was crowned with a tiny nuptial crown that the king had given her on her arrival in Great Britain in 1761. It is studded with many brilliant cut diamonds. It actually rather resembles the crown in the Museum of London we saw earlier. It's really small, and it was designed to simply sit on top of Queen Charlotte's head, on top of her towering wig, as an ornament, and wasn't a proper crown in any true sense. This crown does still survive, and it was given in 1858 by Queen Victoria to her cousin, the King of Hanover, who had demanded that half of his grandparents' jewels should come to him and his royal house as an heirloom. And it's still in Hanover and is used by women of the former royal house at their weddings. At the coronation of William IV in 1831, a new crown was made for Queen Adelaide, his consort. Fashions had changed, and the tiny Queen Charlotte nuptial crown, designed simply to be a flourish for the top of a wig, seemed rather absurd, and the crowns of Mary of Modena seemed a little old, small and dowdy. The new crown, which was modelled on the King's state crown and the special coronation crown of George IV in terms of its form and its setting, was made by the royal jewellers Rundle, Bridge and Rundle, and was set with stones, primarily diamonds, taken from the royal collection. After the coronation, the stones were removed and the frame left empty, and at some point this empty frame left the royal collection and fell into the hands of the Amherst family, who owned it until 1985. For a time the frame was loaned to the Museum of London, but in 1985 Aspreys bought it, and they later sold it to an American collector. But in 1996 its export to the United States was blocked, and the Prince of Brunei then bought it and presented it to Elizabeth II. So the crown of Queen Adelaide is now in the Jewel House at the Tower of London and could easily be reset with stones. The coronation ring used by every consort of the 20th century is the ring made for Queen Adelaide in 1831. Prior to that, a new ring was provided for each consort. Set with a ruby surrounded by 14 brilliants, the shank is also studded with further rubies. It, like Queen Adelaide's crown, was made by Rundle, Bridge and Rundle, and it was given by Queen Adelaide to Queen Victoria in 1837. It was used at the coronation of Queen Alexandra, but it was only added to the Regalia in the Jewel House in 1919. We can assume that Queen Camilla will be invested with this ring. In the absence of any real alternative, all three consorts of the 20th century had a new crown made for their coronations, and they have all reflected the style of the age in which they have been made. The first of these, the crown of Queen Alexandra, was used at her coronation in 1911, was unlike any other British crown. It had 8 rather than the traditional 4 curving arches. Made of platinum rather than gold, it was set primarily with diamonds and has a very Art Nouveau feel to it. No pearls were needed on the crown, as poor Queen Alexandra's neck was weighed down with great swathes of pearls at her coronation. Her crown was also innovative in that it was designed so that the arches could be removed and the crown could be worn, if needed, as a circlet. And all subsequent consorts' crowns have been similarly made, and they have been worn at subsequent coronations without their arches. The centrepiece of Queen Alexandra's crown was the Koh-i-Noor diamond, one of the largest cut diamonds in the world. The diamond is, of course, a source of controversy today. A stone with many legends attached to it. It first surfaced in the 1740s and was an heirloom of the Maharajas of the Sikh Empire. It was given to Queen Victoria after the British East India Company had annexed the Punjab in 1849. Prince Albert had it recut into its present form in 1851. In the Art Deco style crown of Queen Mary, made by Garrard's in 1910 for the coronation of her and George V, and paid for by the Queen herself, the Koh-i-Noor diamond was once again centre stage in the front cross, having been removed from Queen Alexandra's crown. Queen Mary also placed 2 other important diamonds with a colonial history, Cullinan III and Cullinan IV, cut from the largest diamond ever found and known as the Lesser Stars of Africa, in the band of her crown for the 1911 coronation. Although these 2 diamonds were taken out after the coronation and were worn generally by Queen Mary as a brooch, and they were known as Granny's chips by the late Queen Elizabeth. The last consort's crown to be made was that of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, made for the 1937 coronation, again by Garrard's. and once again the Kohinoor diamond was front and centre in it, amid a dazzling collection of 2,800 diamonds set into a light platinum frame, most of which were removed from Queen Victoria's grand or regal circlet that had been made in 1858. Below the Kohinoor is a second large diamond given to Queen Victoria by the Ottoman Sultan in 1856 and was also once set in her regal circlet. The crown was of course last seen in public at the funeral of Queen Elizabeth in 2002, where it was placed upon her coffin. Now, an awful lot of ink has been spilled and there has been much chatter on the internet about how difficult it might be for Queen Consort Camilla to wear the crown of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, as pride of place is given in it to the disputed Kohinoor diamond. But it's quite possible it would in fact be the established tradition for Camilla to be crowned with a new crown designed and made for her. So perhaps that particular controversy can be dodged. I rather hope so, not because I don't want to see the Kohinoor diamond in the consort's crown, but primarily as it would be really wonderful to see a consort crowned with a crown made by the skilled craftspeople of our own age. Many thanks to all of you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you've enjoyed my content. If you feel able to support my channel, there are lots of ways you can do that. By subscribing to my monthly magazine, The Antiquary, which gives you even more content, or by becoming a patron through either Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal. Links to all of those things are in the description box below this video and on the channel homepage. Thank you all very much indeed. I hope you have a happy new year and see you next time. Bye for now.